as we have been doing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, answers by citing the Lord's version, and today we will begin reading verse 36, which, strictly speaking, is the last of these 4 verses, although the message, of course, does continue. Yes, with the next verse. But let's focus today on this particular verse. Let me just see here. What do we want to do here? Remove. Okay. Right. So Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.36. Etavad eva jigyasya tattva jigyasunatmana anvaya vyatirekabhyam yatsyat sarvatra sarvada. Translation. A person who is searching after the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, most certainly, I think it's must certainly search for it. Up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. To unfold the mystery of Bhakti Yoga, as it's explained in the previous verse, is the ultimate stage of all inquiries, or the highest objective for the inquisitive. Everyone is searching after self-realization in different ways, by Karma Yoga, by Jnana Yoga, by Dhyana Yoga, by Raja Yoga, by Bhakti Yoga, etc. To engage in self-realization is the responsibility of every living entity developed in consciousness. One who is developed in consciousness certainly makes inquiries into the mystery of the self, of the cosmic situation, and of the problems of life in all spheres and fields. Social, political, economic, cultural, religious, moral, etc., and in their different branches. But here the goal of such inquiries is explained. Let's see. I'll read a bit more. I won't read the whole next paragraph, but I'll read a bit of it. The Vedanta Sutra philosophy begins with this inquiry about life, and the Bhagavatam answers such inquiries up to this point, or the mystery of all inquiries. Lord Brahma wanted to be perfectly educated by the personality of Godhead, and here is the answer by the Lord, finished in 4 nutshell verses, from Aham Eva to this verse, Etavad Eva. This is the end of all self-realization processes. Men do not know that the ultimate goal of life is Vishnu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to being bewildered by the glaring reflection in the darkness. And as such, everyone is entering into the darkest region of material existence, driven by the uncontrolled senses. The whole material existence has sprung up because of sense gratification, desires based principally on the sex desire. And the result is that in spite of all advancement of knowledge, the final goal of all the activities of the living entities is sense gratification. But here is the real goal of life, and everyone should know it by inquiries put before a bona fide spiritual master, expert in the science of bhakti yoga, or from a living personality of Bhagavatam life. Everyone is engaged in various kinds of scriptural inquiries, but the Srimad Bhagavatam gives answers to all of the various students of self-realization. This ultimate objective of life is not to be searched out without great labor or perseverance. One who is imbued with such sincere inquiries must ask the bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, and that is the direction given here. Because the mystery was disclosed before Brahmaji by the personality of Godhead, the mystery of all such inquiries regarding self-realization must be put before such a spiritual master, who is directly the representative of the Lord, acknowledged in that disciplic succession. Such a bona fide spiritual master is able to clear up the whole thing by evidence from the revealed scriptures, both direct and indirect. Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that is the direction in this verse. The bona fide spiritual master is the most confidential representative of the Lord, and one must receive direction from the spiritual master in the same spirit that Brahmaji received it from the personality of Godhead Lord Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master in that bona fide chain of disciplic succession never claims to be the Lord himself, although such a spiritual master is greater than the Lord in the sense that he can deliver the Lord by his personally realized experience. The Lord is not to be found simply by education or by a good fertile brain, but surely he can be found by the sincere student through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master. So I did read the whole paragraph anyway, that's okay. Etavad eva jigyasyam tattva jigyasanatmana anvaya vyatire kabhyam yatsyat sarvatra sarvada. A person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyachade Shatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Paditanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Right, yes, so we've read these 4 verses now. Not all the purports, but we've got insight, at least to a nice degree, I could say, to what's going on in the purports. And this verse is really, you could say, concluding the basic message and talking about how the procedure by which one can realize all of this and become complete in it, and in that way make one's life complete. Yes. So, Prabhupada, at the beginning of the second paragraph, mentions Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra philosophy begins with this inquiry. Yeah. We know that Srimad Bhagavatam is what is called the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra was compiled by Srila Vyasadeva when he felt he had concluded his studies of all Vedic literature and all knowledge, and he thought he had reached the point of acquiring all knowledge, and he didn't need to go any further. He had reached the actual conclusion. And that is what Vedanta indeed means. Veda means knowledge, Anta means the end. So that literature is meant to present the end of all knowledge in the form of sutras. Sutras means very short verses, like often one-line verses, maybe two-line, but often one-line verses which are only, like 2, 3, 4 words. So it's very, it's very abbreviated, you could say, very short. And as a result, Vedanta Sutra in general is very difficult to understand, at least to understand clearly as it is. And therefore, it is probably the most confusing of all the Vedic literatures. Yes, the most confusing of all the Vedic literatures. So, as a result, there was a need for a commentary. Well, in fact, if you know the story, I'm sure many of you do, that in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, more or less, or like that, in the first canto, 4th, 5th chapters like this, Vyasadeva is considering why he feels confused, why he feels incomplete, despite the fact that as far as he knows, he has actually completed all knowledge, and therefore should be perfectly situated in life. So then Narada Muni comes on the scene, who is Vyasadeva's spiritual master, and explains that you've made a number of mistakes in your presentation of Vedanta Sutra. First mistake and main mistake is that you failed to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead adequately. You really failed. And as a result, it is not clear that Krishna is the focal point. On the other hand, you have glorified excessively karmakandya, or you could just say materialistic religion. And you've presented it in such a light that it sounds like it's the best thing. So what do you expect but to feel confused yourself and dissatisfied, and that you're going to mislead other people and have them end up in the same difficulty as you? So, just an interesting little sort of technical but a very interesting point. In Vedanta Sutra, Srila Vyasadeva begins with the actual, as far as I'm aware, the invocation, not exactly the first verse, but just setting the scene. Atato Brahma Jigyasa, yes, which is 3 words, or in a sense it's only 2 words, because Brahma Jigyasa, really speaking, is 1 word only. And Atato, what he's saying is that the bottom line is, now you've come to the human form of life, you should inquire about Brahman, spirituality. But one of our great acharyas, he elaborates on that verse. It's very interesting, by analyzing the word atato. The word atato is a compound of the same word twice, ata, ata. Ata, ata becomes atato, according to Sanskrit grammar. The laws of what they call sandhi, or the mixing of words when they come together. Ata means thereafter. So atato Brahma Jigyasa therefore means thereafter, after 2 things. You should inquire into Brahman, or what is spirit. So in fact, as I recall, it's Srila Baladev Vijabhushan, he gives the insight that these 2 thereafters, after one thing, then after another thing, you should inquire into Brahman. The first thereafter is just gross materialistic life. You're just living like an animal, trying to get sense gratification by any means. Beg, borrow, steal, work, not work, somehow get material enjoyment. So he calls this animal life. It's really the way the animals live. They have no religion, they just go for it. They just go to get sense gratification by any means. And there's no real question of morality or rules and regulations. When I had, it was just interesting little experience in Vrindavan, probably at least 10 years ago, maybe more. I was in Loy Bazaar, if you know that place, the main shopping area, and there's all sorts of shops selling things from clothes to beads to books to food, to vegetables and fruit. And one cow came along, as they tend to there, and the cow's coming along and saw this nice vegetable and fruit shop. And the cow just took a right turn and just walked straight over to it and started trying to eat something and got chased away by the shop owner. And, you could see, as far as I could tell, you could see the look of surprise on the cow's face. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? The cow really felt mistreated. All I'm doing, I'm just eating. And in other words, there's no sense of morality, that this world is not just here to enjoy. Just grab what you like and go for it. But there is proprietorship. And of course, in this case, the vegetables belonged to the shop owner. But for the cow, there's no question of that. It's just there, and if it's there, and if you can get it, you just get it, and you just eat it, and that's it. And you haven't done anything wrong. It's just totally natural. But actually, of course, the fact is that everything belongs, in a certain sense, everything belongs to someone, but everything ultimately belongs to Krishna. And if we ignore that, we have missed the point of life. And our lives are wasted, actually. So anyway, that's sort of just grab it and go for it, somehow or other. This is the program of the animals. So our Acharya says that the first thing you have to go beyond is just animal life. Even the human version of animal life, which is, a little better, but not that much. Usually, at least, there's some sense of morality. But the animals have no sense of morality. So after that, but not just after that, after another thing after that, then you can in the sense, then you become capable of inquiring into Brahman, into spirit, in meaningful ways, which will facilitate you achieving the goal of life. So what's the next thing? He says the next thing is karmakandya, religious, materialistic activity, specifically religious, that you do sacrifices and worship of different demigods and activities like that. And in that way you acquire the same things which the people or the animals are just grabbing and just exploiting material nature for. But now you get the same things, the same food, the same living facilities. You get the same things, but through religion. So Baladev, or whoever it is, I think it's Baladev Vidyabhushan, makes this interesting point. He says, the first step where everyone is just grabbing stuff, just getting stuff, even working, is sort of the same idea. But the second stage is, he calls it religious animal. It's very interesting. Religious animal. You're just doing the same things. That's all. You're actually not doing anything different at all. But you're doing it now through religion rather than just taking it. So, anyway, we have to inquire about Brahman. It means ultimately we have to inquire about Krishna, who is Para-Brahman. He's the Supreme Brahman. And he's the proprietor of everything, including us. We have to inquire about him. And then, if we really do, as we read yesterday was very important, the message, which we tried to point out. The message is that you can live a nice life, a happy life, in Krishna consciousness if you develop love for the Lord. This you have to do. You have to actually develop love for the Lord. If you try and go about it in some other way, by, Prabhupada mentioned, just studying, just acquiring knowledge of some sort or other. Ultimately, just inquiring about knowledge of Krishna but without any consideration of love, or at least some process which will facilitate or help you to develop love for Krishna. If you just approach Krishna on the intellectual level, just for knowledge, facts and figures and like that, it will not work. And you'll fail, actually. You'll definitely fail. When I first joined, back in very early 73, the devotees, there was one preacher in London who, he liked doing university programs with students and with lecturers. So, just when I joined in the few days, he did a program in Cambridge University. You may well have heard of it, one of the most famous universities in the world. And there in Cambridge, there was a professor of Indology, studying Indian culture and whatever, named Professor Zaina. And Professor Zaina had just published a book on Bhagavad Gita, a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. So our preacher devotee had had a look at the book and realized that it was just, it was just mental speculation from beginning to end. So now this Professor Zaina did a book launch or some attempt to distribute the book at Cambridge in the university. So our devotee preacher went with a few other devotees, and at some point in Professor Zaina's presentation, our devotee started challenging him. Zaina was making certain points. Bhagavad Gita teaches this and that and the other thing. And our preacher stood up and said, well, actually, Bhagavad Gita doesn't teach this, but it teaches something else. And, in front of a whole lot of people, including academics and all these types of people in a hall. And the man got frustrated, of course, but the devotee didn't give up. He really pushed at him. And the man said, listen, all right, come and meet me afterwards and we'll talk about it. And he closed the program. So then the devotee went to try to find him, because this Professor Zaina he had his quarters within the university somewhere. So the devotee went looking around, found some person moving around and asked him, where's Professor Zaina live? And the fellow showed him, he's just, over there. So he went, knocked on the door, the Professor Zaina was not there. So he moved around a little asking people, do you know where Professor Zaina is right now? And someone said, yeah, sure. He's in the bar having a drink. So the devotee went to the bar, and sure enough, there's Professor Zaina having some drinks. And the devotee said, I really want to continue our discussion. And Professor Zaina told him, just get out. Just get out, I'll call the security on you. So the devotee had to go. But this Zaina, if you Google him, you'll find he's a famous, Indological scholar, that sort of thing. And his Bhagavad Gita, maybe he's done, I suppose he's done some other books as well. but he was just a hopeless case. So that point was made yesterday. Prabhupada made the point, and the bottom line being that you must develop love. If you develop love, then you can be successful, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 3, which, I'll have to look up on my computer. Just bear with me. But chapter 4, verse 3 is a really good verse. Saevaya mayate yoga prokta paratana bhaktosi me sakacheti rasyam hyeta dutamam. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of the science. So this is the same point. The point is love. Bhaktosi me, you're a bhakta, you have devotion, means you have love. Sakha, you're my friend also. And friend means a person also who has love. And then you can understand the mystery of the science. So Srila Prabhupada is discussing in these terms here too, that people are searching after this knowledge in different ways. He mentions different forms of yoga, but either directly in some form of yoga, or indirectly through some mental speculation, or just wondering, what is life? The most simple type of inquiry, which is not really hardly an inquiry, but there's interest. People have interest in these things. And one way or another, Prabhupada made the point that actually everyone is a philosopher. Many people will say they're not philosophers because they have a certain idea of what a philosopher is. But everyone's a philosopher in the sense that everyone has some philosophy of life, means even if your philosophy of life is simply that I should get as much money as possible and as much material facility as possible and enjoy it, if that's your philosophy, it's still a philosophy. Yeah, it's still actually a philosophy, even though it's an extremely unsophisticated one. But it's like, you could say, a set of ideas of life which you accept and you live by. It's a philosophy. Don't know if you'd ever thought of that before. So everyone's a philosopher. Even if the sum total of their philosophy is, let me enjoy sense gratification by any means. But everyone's a philosopher. So, yes. So anyway, we have to, what is being stated here is we must certainly search for it in all circumstances, in all space and time, both directly and indirectly. In other words, we have to make this inquiry the very foundation of our lives, and just what our lives are completely focused on. Searching after the supreme, absolute truth by all means. And so anyway, Prabhupada then goes on, how are we going to do that? Not by just mental speculation, not just by reading books, but by inquiry from a suitable person or persons, bona fide spiritual master, and the devotees in general. Yes, and in this way, the Lord is not to be found simply by education or by a good fertile brain, but by the correct inquiry from the correct sources, and then and by making it just one's all in life, then your life will become successful. In other words, so many people work, but so many devotees work. So many devotees work. And if you ask a devotee, you can ask a devotee, what do you do? Or, who are you? A devotee may say, I'm an accountant or lawyer or engineer or something. But I'm also a devotee. But really a devotee should see, I am a devotee who happens, because there's a need to maintain my body and in so many cases to help maintain my family. Therefore I'm a lawyer or a doctor or this or that as well. But actually I'm a devotee, that's what I am. And this being a devotee transcends me, whatever profession or work one has, because sooner or later you'll retire as a working person, but you'll never retire as a devotee. And you're just going to go on even after leaving this body. You're going to go on either into your next life, or when you go back home, back to Godhead, you're just going to carry on as a devotee. So therefore we must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. This inquiry into the Lord and trying to come closer to the Lord has to be just the very essence of our existence. Hare Krishna. And today's a very good day for making some progress in that, if we attend the Rath Yatra. Oh yes. Then by the end of today, we will have progressed beyond wherever we're at right now, even though wherever we're at right now may be, some position of Krishna consciousness, and it's good, it's not bad, it's good. But if we really work at it, if we really get into the Rath Yatra, by the time the program ends tonight, we will have made progress in these same terms that Lord Krishna is explaining to Lord Brahma right here. Any comments, questions, or anything? Mataji, loud and clear, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question.
Yes.
You say that from this Bhagavatam class, that the ultimate goal is Vishnu. But I know that the ultimate goal of life is to go back to Godhead. I would like to have
Okay. It's the same thing. It's like 6 and half a dozen, if you're familiar with the terminologies. It's just the same thing. The ultimate goal of life is Vishnu, means the ultimate goal of life is to become a pure devotee of Vishnu or Krishna, who's the source of Vishnu, and which includes going back to Godhead, necessitates going back, just naturally involves going back to Godhead. So actually we're saying the same thing, just slightly different terminology. Yes.
Vishnu and Krishna are on the same level or are the same?
Krishna is the source of Vishnu, very much. Vishnu is very small compared to Krishna. Vishnu is just in charge of the material world. The material world is just the place for the renegade, deviant, fallen conditioned souls. But the spiritual world is far, far greater than the material world, and far better. So as a service to Krishna, Vishnu, who is expanded from Krishna, who is a form of Krishna, is basically running the material world. So Krishna doesn't have to bother with it, because Krishna doesn't work. Vishnu does the work. He makes sure the material world is functioning properly as the maintainer. He's overseeing, and so on, like that. Yes. So therefore there's famous verse, we may have mentioned it the last few days, Bhagavatam 1:3-28. Ete chansa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. There are many forms of the Lord, and others who are partial forms, and even others who are parts of the Lord, of Krishna. But Krishna is the source. Bhagavan Swayam. He is the actual original source, Krishna. Yes. So, there's so many expansions of the Lord. We know of, not many, but Lord Nrsingadev, Lord Vamana, Lord Varaha, Kurma, these well-known avatars. But there are many, many more who live in the spiritual world. Vishnu is more in the material world. Looking after the material world for the conditioned souls. Trying to correct the conditioned souls. Is that clear enough? Hare Krishna. Yes. Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, okay. Devotees, here's something different. This is Mahaprasadam. A commercially made milk sweet from Latvia, which the devotees offer and use as prasadam sometimes. And we brought some for you. Please come, try it. Haribol. Hare Krishna. It's actually really nice.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Bol. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Just a sec. Mahaprasadam. There you go.
We always have to say that. Now we get. We always have to say no. The right giving my hand. Thank you.
Sorry. Excuse me. Prestige a minute. Torturing you. Yes.
I had a humble suggestion. Maybe one day we could have a session with questions and answers.
Oh, sure.
It could be, then they would be more easier for them.
Mayapur,
Okay.
I don't know, he told me. I
have in person.
Some devotees.
Oh, I see. Oh, you mean individual or as a group?
As a group, it's
Okay, yeah, good idea. Great idea.
if they don't want to voice out, they can write it.
Sure. Okay. So we can tell everyone tomorrow morning. And we'll fix a day, I don't know. Monday, Tuesday or something. Yes, a good idea, thank you. No, I turned off Telegram because of those questions. Hare Krishna.
Please, sir.
Yes.
From chapter. It doesn't seem in his